Automatic, wonderful morning. Hello to everyone that's arriving. So we're going to get started, and I need to be brief, which for those of you who know me will surprise you massively. But I need to be brief this morning because I have to interview a family for quite an intense fundraising appeal at 11 o'clock, and I need to be ready and not keep them waiting. Okay, so I'm going to do a max of 45 minutes and then maybe just a quick 5-minute Q&A chat afterwards. However, I think we're talking about some kind of high-level planning stuff here and big picture things. If you want to have a conversation with us after this and just get into your particular situation and have some thoughts from us on that, we're delighted to do that, but we'll do that individually if that's okay. So if there's something you really want to talk about, then just get in touch. Drop us an email at hello@pebblebeachfundraising.com, and we're absolutely delighted to book in a phone call or a Zoom or whatever works for you, and we can talk about stuff if that occurs, okay? So there's quite a lot that I'm going to whiz through. It's a bit like a stone skimming on the water at the moment, so forgive me if I don't go too deep into stuff, okay? We are trying to cover a fair amount, and it's just about what are we thinking about for 2022. Admin, we are recording this. Recording this webinar will go up on our website. Will also go up on our YouTube channel as well. If you've got any questions or concerns about that, then please do let us know. All the details and information about your data and privacy rights are there, and please do let us know if you need to know anything. So it's about what are we thinking about for 2022, and partly this is some guesswork because no one's absolutely certain, but I think there's a lot of experience that we've now had as we get into quarter 3 in 21-22 about how things are happening and the charity experience, and just sharing a bit of that experience and giving you a couple of examples at the end about how that experience and that planning and that thinking is actually turning into fundraising work. So the first point, I think, is most charities are a year behind. A lot of us thought that where we are now is where we would have been this time last year, coming out of the pandemic, numbers coming down, thinking about getting our events and community programs starting again, and it's just not happened like that. Actually, for the majority of charities for whom we work with, 2021 hasn't been a massive disaster. The emergency funding's been out there, has kind of dealt with that problem while the pandemic, we were in lockdown and while furlough was happening, etc. It's this financial year where the problems are hitting. It's 21-22, because the same issues are still happening. We haven't got events and community fundraising going out there again. Yes, some of the big events like the Great North Run a couple of weeks ago, and there was a London to Brighton bike ride here down here. The big ones are going ahead, but the numbers are down. But those smaller events where we need big numbers, people just aren't comfortable in taking part in large events. And I know that a lot of charities that rely on people getting out there and doing their own stuff, the copy mornings, the pub quizzes, etc., that kind of activity isn't happening. That powers a lot of that kind of income as well. So a lot of stuff is really slow. Individual giving is really flying, however, because it's one of the ways we can definitely communicate to individuals, and trust has been really strong this year as well, but for different reasons. But we know overall, I think we've all realized that there isn't this, we're not going to get back to where we were before. Yeah, 2022, 23, both for our charities and particularly for our fundraising programs, doesn't just go back to the comfort zone we had before. There are new challenges, new pressures, and we have to respond to those. And that's what I want to talk about today, about that planning. How do we think about 2022? First of all, please forgive me for those of you who've got good memories. So busy at the moment, doing so many appeals and campaigns and interviews, etc. I have shamelessly grabbed some of the slides that I used for last year's planning webinar for hospices. So if you've got really good memories, you'll see that a couple of the slides you'll be familiar with. But it's all new content, so don't worry. The one thing I want to start by saying is we can't tread water. We can't just hold on and wait for things to come back to normal. We're seeing this quite a lot. We're having conversations with fundraisers, and it's not the fundraiser, yeah? We're having quite a lot of conversation with fundraisers at the moment that are just pulling their hair out because the trustees say, oh, we just don't know. Well, let's just wait and see what happens. Oh, but can you still go out and raise loads of money, please? And it just doesn't work like that. There has to be this understanding of what is the situation. I'm looking at some of you now and recognizing that situation. Where is the situation? Where are we going? What are we doing? We need, as fundraisers, to have that vision for the future. We need to let people know where we're going, and then we can define the pathway that we're going to use to get there. And that's how we're going to start engaging our audiences. That's how we're going to start bringing the money back in as well. Yes, we'll have to be flexible. We don't know this stuff. We're going to have to duck and dive. We'll have to review things, and we're going to have to need a variety of plans in order to get there. But we have to have this end goal. There has to be a point to this. Yeah. And for a number of charities we're supporting, I've been talking to quite a few people recently about the fact that when their charity was first set up, or first dreamed of, or first imagined, there was a group of people who saw a problem and saw that there was a solution to that problem and became passionate about it and got together to do something. And that's where the charity was created, to solve this problem that mattered so much. We're there again. A lot of charities are back in that position. Where's that passion? Where's the problem that needs the solution? What's the journey? What do we need to do to solve this problem for our communities? Let's have that thinking. Let's not just wait and try and get back into our settled yearly revenue situation, because it just doesn't work anymore. And talking about the planning overview, again, this is really simplistic. There is lots more detail to this. It's really simplistic. But we need an organizational vision. We need to know where our organization is going. What's the point? What's the horizon? Where are we trying to get to? Because if we can define that, we can understand the strategy of how the organization is going to move forward. That therefore defines the fundraising strategy. And I'll talk this through in detail in a second. And once we have that, then we can have the fundraising plan. It is scary. It is honestly scary how many fundraisers, heads of individual giving, directors of fundraising we're speaking to at the moment, who are being told, go and raise money, either go and raise the same as you did before, or actually we need some more money than we've had before. But we can't give you any information or detail about actually what the challenge is, what the problem is, what our solution is going to be, and how we're going to get there. Can you just go and raise some money though? Yeah. And while there's some activity and some exercise that you can do, events and community, etc., you can do that. In order to maximize income, we've got to know what the journey looks like. And so that's why the structure that we try, and again, this is a very simplified version of this, is the four things: organizational vision. Right, what is this new destination? And I'm going to talk in fundraising strategy about revenue plus or capital. There's different ways of thinking about this. Where's the new destination? Are we exactly the same organization as we were before the pandemic? Are we actually facing a new challenge and situation that needs new responses and new thinking? Or are we the same charity, but there's an added layer to that? And therefore, how have our charitable objectives shifted? Beneficiaries, are we supporting more beneficiaries, more people, more animals, whatever it might be? Is the definition of who we're interested in working with and supporting and benefiting changed? Has the geography changed? Are we suddenly looking at a different area, and we charities almost certainly won't know all the answers to this, but what bits do you know? Because that's the bits we can talk about. Give you an example from just yesterday, talking to an amazing hospice at home nurse for St. Peter's in Bristol, and absolutely stunning, talking about her work over the last 18 months, how awful it's been, how challenging it's been. And they have tripled their catchment area and their workload. And that means that they're now seeing, they're covering a 700 square mile area, which is an incredible challenge physically to get to everyone. But they're now reaching people that never had that kind of hospice at home support before, which is amazing. But it means that the relationship and the nature of care has changed. No longer the 3-hour visit, sit down, have a chat, cup of tea. It's much more about clinical intervention, but she's really passionate about it because the work has changed. So there's a change in demographics and beneficiary geography. It changes the story, it changes the narrative, and that's come from the experience of coming through the pandemic. I'll give you some examples later on. I'll give you 3 examples about who we're working with and how this thinking changes things. So once we know what this new destination is, once we've had that conversation with our trustees and chief execs, and blame me, right? If you haven't got this, if you're sitting there as a fundraiser thinking, I'm really not sure where we're going and what's happening at the moment, you tell them from me, blame me, you need this. You need to know this information, because how can you possibly gather and infuse and create passion in your audience and your community if you don't know what you're supposed to be passionate about. You need to know this stuff. And if you don't know everything, what bits do you know? How can you get passionate about it? And then this organizational strategy for the charities, what's the pathway? If there's a new thing, a new problem, a new solution, a new horizon, what's the pathway to get it there? How long is it going to take? And what's it going to cost? And I know seeing people on this, I know there are people on this webinar today, we've had this conversation where we're going to finance and we're saying, guys, okay, what does this actually look like? And we're getting there, I don't know, million, 10 quid? You know, it's just guesswork. No, we need to try and put some specificity on this. Okay, we need to be specific and tangible, because that's what we need for our fundraising proposition. So blame me. Ash says you've got to have this information to be able to maximize your fundraising income, because then that gets you to point 3, and that's fundraising strategy. And what I'm suggesting for 2022, very simplistically, is that you might be in one of 3 situations. You're either in a revenue situation, which basically means your charity is what it is and what it's always been. And yes, the pandemic has been a big speed bump in the road, but actually the mission, the objective, the horizon that you're aiming for hasn't essentially changed. It's just you're in a different environment, and therefore it's the tactical planning about which bits of fundraising work and where you're going to put your resources, etc., etc. Yeah. Or you may be in revenue plus, as I'm calling it. And revenue plus for me is we're still the same organization, but actually the pandemic has changed things. It does mean that we have a newer problem or a different problem, or we've got a change in who we're working with or where we're working that means a different output. So yes, we're the same, but the pandemic has given us a new horizon to aim for, and that's what we can talk about. Or capital, I'm using that word in kind of inverted quotes, really. This is, whoa, hang on, brand new situation. Either crisis, and we are working with a number of charities that are in real problems at the moment financially, or actually the pandemic has completely changed. It means we really had to take a big step back and go, whoa, hang on a minute, this is different, this is new, there's a new narrative, a new story to tell. Right, then we need to engage our audiences. We've got to do that soon, and we've got to do that in a big way as a one-off conversation that we've not had before. Yeah. So once we understand what kind of position our organization is in, then we can think about what can we deliver in each area of fundraising. And what we're seeing is individual giving has been incredibly strong over the last 18 months because it's the only way that many people have had. It's the only opportunity to respond that people have had. And we've worked with many charities that have seen ridiculous results, extraordinarily strong results to individual giving campaigns, both online and offline as well, and wonderful engagement with high net worth individuals and major donors, because there is an obvious need and solution. But it's come from getting out there and actually asking. Yeah, those charities that have sat back and said, oh, we hope people support us. No, it's those charities that have been proactive in getting out there and talking about the problem and sharing the experiences and using the voices of those who receive the service, who give the service. Those are the organizations that have had the success. That can continue, but I think in individual giving, the challenge and the pressure is going to be greater because people are back out there. They are going back out on their holidays and their cruises. The amount of free capital is going to be reduced. There is going to be more competition. All the big charities are going to come out. All the Cancer Research UKs and NSBCCs, you will see massive fundraising campaigns from them in 2022 and 2023. So how do we make sure that we talk to our audiences and our communities and get their support? It's by communication. Corporate is really tough. There is still some corporate giving out there, but a lot of companies are just battening down the hatches. And there's not a lot of corporate direct giving out there. There's some employee engagement, but again, employee engagement, really tough when everyone's working at home. How do you try and speak to a workforce about a fundraising proposition or engagement when everyone's, as we are at Pebblebeach, we're all working from home still, you know? So how do we change that conversation? Corporate is difficult. Trusts is still quite strong. A lot of trusts have moved the way they support. They're thinking about pandemic response funding, and quite a lot now in this quarter are beginning to segue back into their core funding objectives, where they're moving away from rescue, preservation, supporting charities through financial difficulties, and looking to the future. And the conversations that we and my colleague Andrew is having with a lot of fundraising trusts at the moment is, right, where's the plan? We're not interested in just dropping money into a hole that's been created by the pandemic anymore. We want to know where you're going. What's the plan? What's the vision? That organizational vision, organizational strategy, that's what they need in order to give them confidence that they're going to be supporting something that's going to grow and move forward. And as I said earlier, community events still struggling. Some of the big stuff is happening, but we don't do Pebblebeach. I've never been events and community fundraiser. I've managed events, community fundraisers, love them to bits, but I wouldn't do that job. I don't know the detail of it. I'm just saying, look, everything I'm being told by those with whom we're working is saying that it's really tough. And there's lots of difficult conversations going on about, do we try and have a fundraising board? Do we try and have the run? Do we try and put the bike ride on? And feeling like, well, if we delay it until the spring, maybe that will be okay. You know, maybe this autumn isn't the time to bring it back. Whereas previously, this time last year, we were all talking about, right, brilliant, let's get out there in March and sell a whole summer's worth of amazing events and community fundraising. It's just not happening. And that's likely to be depressed again next year. So that then moves us over to number 4, which is your fundraising plan. Once we've thought about the different ways we can reach the audiences in the market, then we have the fundraising plan. And there's 2 parts to this. And it's about the thinking. And this is so important on the planning side, that we do the thinking first. What is the case of support? What is our fundraising proposition? What's the journey? What's the vision? All this stuff I'm talking about. Where are we taking people? What's the opportunity that we're offering them to be a part of? And then the first part of that is about audience research and planning. Right, if this is where we're going, this is our vision, who are we speaking to? Who might come with us on this new journey? And do we know them and understand them? And there are, again, a concerning number of organizations that are just whacking out a fundraising message to everybody, or sending something out in a newsletter or an email out to everyone. And that's the big message. That's the big campaign. And it doesn't get any kind of response. And it doesn't get an engagement because there hasn't been that thought about actually who we're speaking to and how do I need to be speaking to them. So it's that thinking and planning and research side. Even though money is tough and trustees and boards are screaming at you for extra income, if you don't do the thinking, you won't maximize the opportunity for the doing. And then the doing is, right, are we starting a new journey? In which case, when do we start that and how do we start that? And then what do we do in terms of the delivery of our fundraising propositions? Most of the charities that we're working with simply do not have the resource to do everything that they know they should be doing this year. And so it's not a question of let's just blast everything out to every audience. It's right, what can we achieve? What reasonably and within our budget is possible? What can we do in-house? What can we get done out-house because we need the support? But what do we not bother with? And that comes from the thinking about understanding where your money is likely to come from, where the fundraising opportunities are. And just looking through those, you know me, if you've seen these webinars before, audience, proposition, media, timing, creative, in that order. So looking at the audience, I'm assuming you guys, you know this. So audience, who are they? Where are they? What have they done before? What information do we have about their relationship with us that allows me to kind of have a sensible conversation about something that's probably going to be interesting to them in the future? And who are our best supporters? When we look at individual giving, we talk about major donors at the top of the donor pyramid, and we talk about high net worth individuals, as those that are giving. They're the 20% that are giving the 80% of the income. And there's always that, but that translates across all areas of fundraising. Your 80-20 rule, if you've ever got the time to do it, go and have a look at your database. It's scary. 80% of your income within a certain sphere of fundraising income, trusts, individuals, corporates, etc. 80% will be coming from 20% of the people you do. But are you spending 80% of your time and your team's resource in speaking to that 20% of the audience that's going to give you the 80% of the income? Because that's the key. What we mustn't do is in 2022 and at the end of this year is just try and blast out as much as we can to as many people as possible. That's not the solution. We can have global conversations. We can send appeals out. We can have things online. Absolutely, of course, we do that. But where we put our resource and our time, it's those individuals, those organizations that are most likely to give us the best support. And that's where we've got to be spending that time. The other massive frustration that we've had over the last 18 months is about, particularly for individuals, is about GDPR and privacy. I won't bang on about this because I've banged on about it many times before. But those charities that have hamstrung themselves by implementing a GDPR or privacy policy when that legislation came in 2018, that now prevents them from having conversations with people that we really should be talking to is so frustrating. And there are a number of charities with whom we've worked where we've been able to change the privacy policy, lose opt-in, go back to legitimate interest. And if there was ever a time, you've heard me say this before, I'm sure, if there's ever a time when we wanted to be able to reach back and talk to someone who 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago was a magnificent supporter of our charity, who was passionate and generous to us, but we haven't heard from them for a long time, my God, now's the time we need to go back to them. Because that affinity with what we do, with the cause, with the delivery is still there. We've got to go and reach to them. But you can only know who those are if you do the research. And you've got two potential audiences, ways of doing that. And it depends on you, whether you're revenue plus capital, about how much intensity I think you put into each of this. Who have you got already on your books? Who do you already know about? Because that gives you an immediate quick win opportunity. You can get out there and you can talk to them about need. Yeah. And we've been recruiting and reactivating donors from 15, 20 years ago, because we've been including them in campaigns and we've told them why we need them, and they've responded to that cause. Yeah. But also you can invest a small amount of time in identifying the potential new supporters in your community or organizations or trusts that might be willing to support you. It's really not the case that you can just go back to the same old. Okay. You've got to be thinking about maximizing your opportunity, and that's about audience understanding. Proposition. There's always a problem solution. The best fundraising is, this is the problem, this is the solution, here's how you're going to play a part in that. Here's how your gift can make that difference. If anyone coming in can mute, I would be very grateful to you. Thank you. So where's the problem solution now? That comes back from this organizational vision. Where are you going? Where's the solution? Where's the strategy? How have things changed? I'll give you some examples in a sec. How much do you need? Have that argument. And it often is an argument of finance. How much do you need? You've told us what you need to achieve. You told us where we need to go. What does that cost? How long does it take? And is that front loaded? Do you need us to jump out and deliver something really, really quickly and big because you need some cash right now in order to get this thing going? Or is this a slow build thing that we can launch in a year's time? Where's the time scale? Don't just, as a fundraiser, I know it's tough because the demands are there, but if someone turns around to you and says, just go and raise money, fine, yes, I can. What do you need it for? Give me the information I need to be able to go and have that conversation. Imagine you sat there in front of a major donor. Tell your chief executive trustees, if you were sat in front of a major donor right now, what would you say to them? What's the reason that you need them to give you money right now? Justify that. Imagine you're having that conversation. That's the conversation you're asking me to have. I need the information. I need that support. And show the vision. I'm absolutely all over talking about this horizon, this new destination, the big picture, the passion, the dream, the vision. That's how almost every charity started, with that kind of conversation. But when we're talking about fundraising, we've got to talk about how each individual supporter, business, trust, individual, community, what's the next step of that journey that we're asking them to help us take? How is their contribution going to make that specific, tangible difference to the beneficiaries we seek to serve? And it's about bringing those two together. So we should never, I implore you, no fundraising appeal should ever be, it costs us £8 million a year to run our service, please give whatever you can. Okay, yes, you do need millions of pounds, but actually, what does that individual, what can that company, what can that trust, what can that community group do to solve the problem that you've got right now? And what type of giving as well? At the moment, it's interesting, we've had a lot of charities come to us saying, oh, we'd like to do regular giving, because it's a time, well, people are aware of our charity, want to do regular giving. Quite a lot of the time, we've actually said no to that this year, because we don't, looking at the proposition, it's not the time to talk about regular. We're not in a comfortable regular giving situation just yet. We're in an oh shit situation quite a lot of the time, and we need that immediate response, and that's the experience that the donor has, and that's why we need them to give us that one-off gift. Yes, we will absolutely talk to them about regular. The experience, for example, of capital appeals, where we've helped charities build things or develop brand new services, has almost always been that there is a time, there is an ability while the capital thing is going on to talk about one-off giving. Next part of this capital project, and if it's a building, for example, there's foundations, and we've got bricks, and we've got windows, and we've got roofs, and we've got gardens, and etc., and equipment and whatever. And so there's many opportunities while that one-off unique capital situation is happening to go and talk to them about this one-off unique problem situation, and therefore a one-off gift that matches it. But when the thing's done and when it's built and when we've got to that new horizon, then we go back to the audience and we say, that's magnificent that you've been part of the team that's got us here. Look at your achievement. Look at what we've been able to manage to do together. Now we need to run this thing. Can we talk to you about regular contribution? And that's the logical, natural process for that. I'm not saying you can never have regular giving. I'm not saying you shouldn't have regular giving options for both. And I'm talking about individuals and organizations here. Yeah. So whether that be a sponsorship, whether that be a club for your corporates, something simple that people can join in with, absolutely fine. But I don't want, at the moment, we're not trying to hard sell a regular giving commitment or product for either organizations or individuals this year. It's just too soon for almost every charity we're working with, okay? For individuals, gifts and wills, however, is absolutely vital. The baby boom generation, we keep talking about them. Those are the generation that have powered a lot of the individual giving. It's those retired people with secure incomes that haven't been able to spend money as they would have wished, and therefore they've powered a lot of the individual giving for charities over the last 18 months. We need to be having that conversation with them. We should be able to look ourselves in the mirror in a couple of years' time and say that every individual that supports our charity, we've been able to have that conversation with them about giving in wills. We've put that option in front of them. We've told them why. We've told them how important it is. We've told them the benefit that their gift in will deliver, and they've made a decision on it. We've got to be confident we've done that. And then, as I say, other fundraising products. If you want clubs, if you want groups, and we can have raffles and lotteries and all that thing, great, absolutely brilliant. But it's got to be based on the understanding and the research into the audience and what do they want to do, and what is their need, what are they passionate about, what do they want to be supporting. And I mentioned this last time, the last webinar, that increasingly I'm really conscious that we need to have this non-financial opportunity. A lot of people are struggling at the moment. A lot of companies and organizations are struggling at the moment. I do not want any charity to be in the situation where, unless you give me some money, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. I really don't want that. There are organizations and people out there that are just as passionate and committed to your cause as they've always been. They just can't put some money in the pot at the moment. That's fine. Let's maintain those relationships where we can, cheaply, efficiently, but let's maintain those relationships, because when those individuals and organizations come back to the point where they are able to support, it's going to be those charities that they still feel the affinity with. Those are the ones that are going to get the benefit of them. So, for example, working with a lot of our children's hospices, we're asking organizations to contribute staff voices, organizational voices of support and passion to the children's hospice, to the nurses and the parents and kids and siblings that are going to be served by the kids hospice. And that's, if there's a financial opportunity there, if you can give money to help us pay for the care at the children's hospice this year, absolutely magnificent, fantastic. Here's how you can do that. But you know what? We recognize it's tough. If you can't give money, not a problem. Stay involved. Be part of the family. Be part of the community. Let these kids and families and nurses know that you're caring about them. And we'll come and talk to you next year about some other opportunities. Let's use the opportunity to build friends. Let's not just focus on the money, because we stand risking, I think, losing valuable relationships in the future. And lastly, on proposition right, who are the faces and voices? There are times I was almost tempted last week delivering as one charity, bless them, who their Christmas appeal this year is a full-on emergency funding crisis appeal. We need to find 7 figures within 3 months, otherwise lots of nasty stuff happens. And at that point, I was quite tempted to voice that campaign from the chief executive because of that. But I saved myself from myself and still managed to have the head of service delivery, and it worked much, much better. So there are very, very few occasions at where, I've been a director of fundraising and a chief exec. I'm a bloke in a suit and no one cares what I think. It's about who delivers the service, who receives the service. Those are the voices. So let's concentrate and make sure that we're talking in those voices. Really quickly, media. Match lesson. Got a major donor who can give you £1 million, go and speak to them face to face. If you can't speak to them face to face, do this, do Zoom. Have that one-to-one conversation. And it's not just you. Again, I get so frustrated. Fundraisers, trustees and chief executives going, right, there you go. Go and fundraise then. Well, what are you doing? You know, if you're a trustee of 20 years and you know the charity backwards, why aren't you the one having the conversation? We'll set you up. We can give you the information about who you're speaking to, what they've done before, the amount we think they might be able to give, and the thing that they're passionate about. But you can have the conversation because you're the one that knows. Fundraising is not something that is just done by the fundraising team. You know, how many times have you heard us, and particularly Andrew, say that, you know, fundraising is a team sport. And particularly now, coming out of the pandemic, we're all in this together. Everyone has to be a fundraiser. We're all on the side of the delivery. We all have to be on the side of the fundraising as well. And we need our trustees and we need our SMTs to help us and support us. And this kind of high level engagement with specific individuals, with heads of companies, whatever it might be, there's a job of work that they can do for us here. So let's have that conversation. If we can't see them face to face or Zoom, let's speak to them on the phone. Phone's difficult for individuals, privacy issues. You're allowed to phone home phones, but not mobiles without the specific information. But getting telephone, home telephone information is more difficult at the moment, where not a lot of people collect it anymore. Direct mail has been a magnificent solution for a lot of charities over the last 18 months because you can just do it. As long as you haven't got a privacy policy that specifically stops you from doing it because you've chosen to do that. And if you have, there's ways of reversing out that decision. Legitimate interest. Direct mail is of itself a legitimate use of individuals' data, and therefore you can communicate with individuals through direct mail, and you can communicate with organizations through direct mail. There is nothing to stop you from doing that, but it's about identifying where the money is going to come from, so you're not just blasting everything as something out to everyone in the database, because that's not efficient. Email and social, brilliant. Digital has really strengthened over the last 18 months. We've seen charities that have had fantastic responses, 30, 40, 50 grand from digital only campaigns. Absolutely brilliant. However, every single fundraising campaign that we've delivered has been multi-channel, which is about direct mail, but also having digital and social on it. And roughly 60% of the income has come in old school because there's been a direct communication in their hand, and that response has come back in their hand. Yes, we'll make some money in these extraordinary times that we wouldn't have made before with social and digital, but you'll only make 30, 35, 40% of your maximum potential in those channels. The majority of your income will not, you won't access the audience through those channels. Now, you've got to be thinking about how you reach them. And I just talk about doorways. You know, you've heard me say this before. What doorways are we opening up? We should be putting that charity proposition, our vision, our horizon in front of someone. They look at us and go, yeah, brilliant, got it. Okay, what have you got? Yeah, that's the right price. That's the right time scale. And that's the right level of engagement or activity for me. Yeah, I'll do that. Brilliant. If we don't open these doorways, people can't walk through them. We don't get the support. So let's make it easy for everyone to support us. Okay. And very quickly about timing. When do we launch the capital or the revenue plus conversation? There are some key points coming up. We're engaged in all of these at the moment with different charities. First of all, this Christmas. This is the first normal Christmas in 2 years. This is an opportunity for people to actually get together again. Some sense of returning to where we were before, but still in a challenging and different way. So is this the time to start the conversation? For other charities, it's January. 2022 actually is the start of this new journey, this new thing. A new year, we hope, beyond COVID, or learning to live with COVID. A key one, I'll mention this specifically, is end of financial year. This is a key point, particularly for any kind of campaign that involves major donors, high net worth individuals, because there's a conversation already working with many charities. We're looking at the end of the financial year. We're going to get to the end of the financial year, and that's usually budgets. Budget process starts what? End of November, beginning of December. Hopefully you got a draft in January. Hopefully that gets signed off in February. We work with charities that don't actually have a signed off budget until August, even though the year began in April. So if you're in that situation, you're not alone. Don't worry about it. But the financial planning, at some point, someone's going to have to say, right then, how much money we're going to have next year? What do we think the fundraising income is going to be? And you're going to be asked that. What is our service delivery team saying they need to spend? And there's going to be some decisions made. So if one of those decisions is about either not doing something that's absolutely necessary and amazing, but new and you can't afford it, or heaven forbid, we're going to have to stop some stuff, a bit of our service is going to close. When's that decision point? This charity I was saying to you about that we're trying to raise this, £1 million. Actually, the deadline, it's the end of financial year, but the deadline is February, because that's the trustee meeting, which they go, right then, what are we going to do? So that's the conversation that we're having with the audience, because that's the reality of that charity situation. So end of financial year is also important to major donors, high net worth, because for individuals that have their own personal tax situation sort out, if they're going to make a tax efficient contribution, they need to be planning that as part of their financial year. So we want to be talking to those kind of audiences in February and March. So there's a specific point in time actually where that's quite important. And then beyond that, probably getting into summer. Easter, for if events and community programs starting again, of course, Easter is really important. We start getting into the warmer weather in that program. But for a couple of charities working with, it's actually about the summer, because we've lost 2 summers of normal engagement, of normal activity. And actually, so it's 3 summers since we had a normal summer. So what does that look like? And it depends on the kind of activity the charity is going for. Very, very briefly, creative. There's a couple of things we've seen recently where someone's had a great idea for a strap line or a particular photo, and it's just blasted out, and it's great and it's lovely, and it's raised nothing because there's no substance behind it. You can get a quick win on social media with an amazing photograph or a really quick strap line, and you'll get a blob of income, from people that are immediately emotively responded. But actually, there's no substance to that. There's no foundation to that kind of thing. Do that. Have the passionate commentary, have the wording, have the image, but it's got to come from that vision. It's got to come from that journey and your description of that. Okay, and it's passion, directness, honesty, reality. The voices of those that count. Yeah, it's not a slick marketing program. Again, think back. My suggestion is think back to when your charity was founded. That wasn't a group of slick marketing professionals that built your hospice, animal sanctuary, national health, health condition charity. It was a group of amateur individuals that were just absolutely passionate about something and said, right, let's sort this out, let's do something. And they built a charity. You're kind of there again. Have that honesty. And I'll talk about the specific situation now in a second. Just give you 3 examples. I'm desperately trying to be on time here, guys. 3 examples. This is what I would call an example. Having gone through that thought process, this is a revenue in those 3 categories that I kind of gave you. Yeah. So this is Celiac UK, the national charity that supports everyone with celiac disease and those seeking a gluten-free lifestyle. And one of the conversations we had, their revenue, it's celiac is celiac, and they do amazing work, and they have incredible membership, and they do lots and lots of support, and they're going to continue to do that. But one of the conversations we came out of this was the fact that actually the experience of children through this, as lockdown ends, and the isolation caused by the fact that celiac disease brings a lot of other conditions as well, that means that mixing in a COVID environment is really not a great idea. So there was a conversation here, and the campaign that's come out, the big launch campaign, was No More Lost Childhood. It's about actually, can we get celiac disease diagnosed really early in childhood? Because if we do, we change the entire nature of a childhood. And this is little Daisy, who fortunately was diagnosed when she was quite young, but the 3 years before she was diagnosed was absolutely horrific. And then there's another story in this campaign of a young lady who wasn't diagnosed until her early 20s. And now she's gone gluten-free. Her physical state and her entire life has changed, but she's had the most horrific childhood of not attending school, of being ill all the time and not knowing why, and doctors vaguely guessing about different things. So this is us. The communication with the audience here is, we're still doing what we're doing, but the pandemic has actually made us realize, it's brought into focus the fact that actually it's about diagnosis in childhood. So our first criteria, our new passion and mission and vision as we come out of the pandemic, is focusing on diagnosis in childhood, because actually that's where we make the most difference. Yeah. So it's still what they do, but we're talking about the journey through the pandemic and how actually, therefore, right now we need you to focus on this area, because this has brought this into sharp focus. Second one would be the lovely people at Raystead. It's an animal sanctuary down here in Sussex. And for Raystead, I call this Revenue Plus. And the reason for that, they're an animal sanctuary. They rehome thousands of dogs and cats every year, and they are a sanctuary to all kinds of animals that you can see there. And it's fab, and it's a visitor centre, and you can go there and you can see the animals, and you can have a coffee, and you can walk around with your kids, etc. They are still that. However, the Revenue Plus situation, they're in a new situation, in that suddenly they're seeing a huge amount of new animals, particularly dogs, who are being abandoned or put up for adoption because people took them during lockdown and now realize that when they go back to work, they can't care for them, etc., etc. And so there's suddenly a big surge. There's a big new problem coming out of the pandemic that the animal sanctuary has not had to deal with before. And also, secondly, A lot of the animals coming to them now have severe behavioral problems because they've had these animals and they've been stuck in. They haven't been out, they haven't been socializing with other animals, etc. So you've got animals with severe behavior problems, either their aggression or there's no confidence and they can't do that. So the team having to employ more staff working longer hours and spending a lot more time working with the animals before they're able to rehome them because they've got to get through these problems. That's created this massive financial challenge for this charity. It's a new problem. They're still the same charity, but there's a new thing. There's a new set of problems that are specifically being created by the pandemic. And so we're reaching out to you and saying, this Christmas, this is the challenge we have, and this is why we need to do. We need your support. And then the third one, friends from St. Barnabas, hello. St. Bees has had this complete step back, as many hospices have, but St. Barnabas caring for everyone in Lincolnshire. It's a massive step back to say, whoa, hang on a minute. We've now got teams working from home. We've got people working in different ways. We've got people working in isolation. The way we deliver care is going to change quite significantly. And therefore, that's prompted a complete review of, right, how do we deliver care? Do we need buildings? How many buildings do we need? What do we do about our inpatient unit? What do we do about wellbeing? There's a complete root and branch review. The objective is still the same, that everyone in Lincolnshire has a good death and we support their families. But how do we deliver that? And so part of that is us working with their trustees and board and fundraising team to identify this new vision, this pathway, and to plan a fundraising journey that will begin in it has already begun, because this is the first part of it, but it'll carry on for another 4 or 5 years. But the vision is this new version, this new St. Barnabas Hospice service that actually will deliver everything that the old service wants to deliver, but it will deliver it better in new ways to more people. And there's quite a significant change there. And this is the hospice care in South Lincolnshire. They're building a brand new hospice hub for hospice at home and community nursing and support services in the south of Lincolnshire. That project was already underway and was already half funded during the pandemic. So this appeal has already gone out. And we hope, touch wood, that the building will be handed over to the charity by the end of November. Although, as we sadly found out yesterday, someone broke into the site and stole 2 diggers from their, who steals 2 caterpillars from a hospice, for God's sake, And they've managed to find them back, but it means that they've now, suddenly the budget's had to go up because they've got to pay for security for the site. I mean, it's just, appalling. But this is the reality of it. So that's the conversation. So at the moment, for that audience, we're not able, with the major donor audience, to have that conversation about, here's the future. There's a vision. There's definitely a landing pad that we're aiming for. And this is the first bit of it. But what we're doing is we're engaging that audience with the conversation. Yeah, we're not waiting until we've got everything dotted and crossed before we go to an audience and say, brilliant, this is us, this is what we're doing, give us your money. We're engaging that high value audience, trust, corporate and individuals, in the journey itself, allowing them to be part of that journey, because if they're part of the decision-making process, they're going to be more committed and engaged with the support. Okay. I've got 1 minute. I'm late. I've got 1 minute. I'm going to try and do it in 2. Okay. So just briefly, this is how we help. The first thing is on the thinking. You've heard me say this a number of times, your critical friend. Our job is to be your friend and partner in helping you get the thinking right, but to gently and in a very friendly way to challenge you. Have you done the thinking? Where's the vision? Where's the strategy? Have you thought about the audience? Have you thought about, particularly about proposition development? We do a lot of work on proposition development, sitting with charities that say, right, well, this is what we're doing. Like with that example with celiac, for example, helping them to identify, okay, what's the narrative? How do we have the conversation? What part of the journey do we put in front of the audience at different points in time? How do we actually get into developing the case of support, for example? And we work with a number of charities in delivering that right. What's the point of this? Where are we going? How do we articulate that then allows the fundraising team to grab bits of our case of support and go, right, Fred, this is the bit I need to talk to you about today. Okay. And that year planning as well, once you know the journey is in, how the hell do you actually deliver that in a year? What resource have you got in-house? What can you deliver in-house? What is it worth spending money externally on getting delivered because you can't do it, but you need to do it? What should we park and wait for a sunnier day? And we're helping a number of charities through that kind of thinking and planning process at the moment. And then the second bit, of course, is the doing, the delivery of stuff. And for some, as with St Barnabas, we're working very closely as part of the fundraising team on delivering the whole narrative and the whole program of campaigns and appeals. We're setting up, supporting major donor, high net worth individual. Andrew is doing a huge amount of work, and our team supporting him on trusts and foundations. There's a lot of challenge out there with trusts and foundations. There's money there, but you've got to work hard to get it, and it needs skill and experience. If you've got that in-house, brilliant. Andrew is supporting a number of charities, effectively mentoring or just being a critical friend to the existing trust fundraising resource in-house. But for a couple of our charities, we are actually the trust fundraising department because they haven't got that in-house resource. We're also supporting charities with corporate proposition development, corporate fundraising, product development, a couple of places as well, because it's the right time to have that. And of course, those of you know us, we deliver everything revolved about individual giving. So whether that's appeals, giving and wills, regular giving, lotteries, raffles, etc. Anytime you're reaching out to an individual's audience and asking them for money, we'll do that from start to finish. And for some charities, we are that buy-in resource. I need help on this specific moment, come in, deliver this thing, and then go away again. Brilliant. That's why we exist. For others, we are there for the long term. We will take over responsibility and deliver for a year or a year and a half or 2 years, or until you recruit someone or cover a maternity or whatever it is. So whatever the need is, we're able to, we deliver that. Okay, so really quick summary. The horizon. What's your horizon? Where are you going? What's the plan to get there? Let those supporters, when you have that conversation, this is a chance to allow people to be part of your renaissance, your resurrection, part of your triumphant journey to your new horizon. They can be part of that team, not simply an innocent, passive bystander that's giving you some money as you charge on past. Let them be involved. Individual giving and trusts is going to be really important, I think, for the next 18, 24 months. Really, really important, much more significant part of income generation than where we've all kind of got comfortable with. But those are the forms of fundraising that we definitely can deliver. Whatever happens, we can ask individuals for money. We can get a full trust program out there. Things are going to change, and that's absolutely fine. People will understand. They don't expect you to draw a line in the sand and stick to it for the next 24 months. Things are going to change, but if we take them on that journey with us, then they'll be part of the group that supports us. And as I say, I think that those 3 points, I wonder whether, if you leave this and you look ahead for your next financial year, 2 years, whatever, which of those 3 options are you? Are you a revenue charity where we do what we do? There's a difference, there's a bit of a story, but actually it's still the same thing. Are you revenue plus? Yes, we are still the same organization, but actually there's a significant amount of change here. It's a new story about our charity, and we need to tell that story. Or is it capital, which is either, whoa, hang on, this is a brand new ball game, or is it the oh shit campaign, we're in trouble and we need your help? Okay, so which of those 3 are you? Because depending on what that is, it probably depends on how quickly you need to act, how ambitious you need to go for. Yeah. Right. Next year, we talk about end of financial year's appeals. We've delivered quite a few of these over the years, and there's quite a lot of specific experience about what happens at the end of financial year. If that's something that's interesting to you, I'm going to talk about that in November. Please come along and ask and join in with that, and I'll talk you through some examples and give you some stuff about this is what happened, etc. Yeah, and there's some quite interesting things about engaging high net worth audiences and that kind of thing. Where are we? And that's us. hello@pebblebeachfundraising.com. If we'll do, where are we, Lucy? I'm looking at you and saying this. We've got 10 minutes. I need to be off. So we'll do a quick Q&A for 10 minutes. If there's a longer conversation you want to have, or if you want to share the experience of your charity and just get a viewpoint or a bit of critical friend thinking from us, absolutely delighted to do that. There's no charge, there's no obligation. Get in touch, say hi. Best way is just drop us an email, please, to hello@pebblebeachfundraising.com, and we'll come back and organise something for you. And I hope that was okay. I hope that was valuable. Thank you very much for coming along. Lucy, have we got people asking things?
No specific questions. Oh, one has just come in. Poppy's written about the uncertainty about whether there's going to be a winter lockdown.
Yeah. Okay, so no, really good point. One of the children's hospitals we supported last year, their Christmas campaign last year was about isn't it going to be wonderful that we can support them, we can get loads of people in, and we're going to do this for the kids, we're going to have Santa, and we're going to have all this stuff. And that was the entire Christmas appeal, and then it completely folded, and they weren't able to do any of that, and then it was really horrible. But there were no complaints from it was upsetting for the charity, and it was upsetting for the trustees, but there were no complaints from the public, because this is the reality of the situation. All we can do is be honest and say, we're trying to do this. Poppy, hi, I can see you. How are you doing? We're trying to do this. We have this vision. We have this ambition, this passion to deliver this outcome. And touch wood, we're going to get there. But yeah, I'll give you an example about the caveat on this. This campaign I talk about this just over £1 million. Otherwise, we have to make a really horrible decision by February. Yeah. What we're saying to people there is, look, we can't guarantee this is going to work, but we can guarantee that whatever you do, it's going to help us to deliver the best possible experience for our community. So if you're engaging people with that passion, with that opportunity, I think the vast majority of your audience will understand that there isn't that certainty. Yeah, what if we go into another lockdown? You know what? If we do, individual giving is even more important than that, because all the Christmas stuff we're trying to do, But yeah, just be real, be honest. Yeah. Lucy, sorry. Anything else?
There's another question from Lisa, who's asked about any quick tips on doing an oh shit campaign without actually using those words.
I mean, yeah, it depends on the. Sorry for swearing. It's my shorthand. We've said that a number of times. We had quite a few oh shit campaigns going out in April, May last year. It's the reality of it. It's the simple planning is audience proposition. Go back to those slides if you look at the recording. Audience proposition, media, timing, creative. Audience, who are you speaking to? Who are the 20% of people that are going to give me 80% of the money? And I know that because they're the ones that have already given me that cash. The people who've already given you most money are the people most likely to give money in the future. Start at that point. Look at your pyramid and look at the pyramid and identify who's likely to give that. Right, then proposition. What's the problem? What's the solution to that problem? How much does it cost? What's the time scale? What happens if I succeed? This £1 million campaign we're describing. If we make it, this is what we save. These are the experiences. This is the service that we'll be saving. Yeah, these are the people that we'll be protecting. But if we don't make it, here's going to be the outcome, and this is what this is going to feel like. Yeah. So what can you do for your charity to say, if it works, look at what we can achieve, look at what we can deliver. But if it doesn't work, this is the reality of the situation. So there's the problem solution. There's the alternatives. We've got 2 potential futures. Which future can you help us to move to? Yeah, we want to be here, but this is the alternative if we don't make it. So that opportunity, but then it's proposition specifically. That's the global. Here's the thing I'm asking you to do. This is a specific bit that the problem that you can solve for me. Yeah. And then it's about media. Is this a phone call? Do I go around and see someone? Do I invite them to come in for a schmooze, socially distanced in the garden with the chief executive? Do I send them a direct mail pack? What am I doing about social media, etc., etc.? And then timing, creative. When am I going to get this out? When can I actually land this? Can I coordinate everyone? I want my fundraising campaign landing at the same time as my marketing team. And I know that for some people, the fundraising team and the marketing team are the same one person. So, but where's my fundraising team? Can I get that fundraising bit delivered? Where's my marketing messages? Have I got my message going into local press? Have I got my website ready? Have I got my social media stuff ready? Can I deliver that? Yeah. And then the creative is then finally, what does it look like? What does it sound like? And there are times to be glitzy and gloss. We're doing campaigns with kind of 4 colors and gold dots all over it and sparkles and fireworks and all that kind of thing. And we're doing other campaigns that are literally, we're going 2-color emergency style communication because that fits the proposition. So the look and feel needs to match that creative, but it's that sequence: audience, proposition, media, timing, creative, in that order. If you do that work, get that thinking right, it may not deliver all the money you need, but one thing you will be able to do at Christmas or in the new year, you'll be able to look back and go, yeah, that was the best we could do. We ticked all the boxes. We got there. Yeah. Poppy, sorry, you wanted to say something?
Yes, only quickly, so feel free, we can email if not. I think just moving forward, I don't know your view on this, but we have our appeals team and kind of the people doing the one-off cash gifts. It's really great, but individual giving and regular giving is usually an afterthought. So as I'm now like in charge of, you know, regular giving, I'm just like trying to incorporate that more. I just wondered if you have any advice, or maybe that's not the most important thing when we do appeals.
No. I think it's part of that sequence, though, isn't it? We're all one team sharing one goal. It drives me nuts when we see people working in silos, and there are some charities that I know that are here that struggle with that problem. That the marketing and the corporate and the trust and the individual giving, that kind of thing. At the moment, if there's ever an opportunity for everyone to get together and say, guys, we are one team with one mission, with one vision, one new shining horizon that we're aiming towards, right then, let's have that narrative. There's no need for anyone to have different narratives. And then probably I think it's just about, okay, that's the narrative, that's the journey we're on, this is how we want to engage people, right? Which bits of that narrative do we grab and talk to our specific audiences about, and when's the right time to do that? But whoever you speak to, if I'm the external viewer, I might be, we tend to fall into the trap of thinking everyone sees everything we do. They don't. They really, really don't. Again, stones skimming off a pond, yeah, our communications. So an individual might just see a direct mail piece. They might see a Facebook post. They might see a thing on you know, in the newspaper. They won't see all of it together. So can we be sure that whatever they see, whatever their engagement, they've seen our key message? They understand the problem, they understand the solution, and there's an opportunity to engage put in front of them. And so for you, for regular giving and for high net worth individual giving, who's my audience? How do I reach them? How do we plan that? And that's exactly the kind of conversation that we're having all the time. Yeah. And that's that kind of critical friend thinking. So if you want to get in touch, so hello at or Lucy at, whichever you prefer, say hi, we'll book some time, we can have that conversation. Again, anyone else, if you feel that that's going to be useful to you, get in touch, we can have that conversation. But it's that kind of thinking. It's big picture stuff, get that right, and then you can deliver the specific stuff. And when that lands and it all aligns, that's when you get the incredible response. That's when you get that, you know, biggest one earlier this year, a charity, we delivered a campaign of just under 7,000 individuals through direct mail with some social media on the back of it, etc. Combined campaign, it delivered £225,000. Yeah, with against a target of 45. You know, absolutely amazing. So there are if you get it right, you can maximize your opportunity. Yeah. That's all you can do. You can't guarantee to solve your charity's problems. You know, fundraising is not this panacea. We are not the solution to everyone else's ills and problems. And we cannot go out and do our jobs well if the people that are making the decisions about who we are, what we do, where we're going, and how we're getting there aren't making those decisions. So again, you know, tell them I sent you, right? It's go, make sure you've got that backup. Make sure you know what the vision is, you know what the plan is, you know what the journey is, because then you are the sales team. You can go and sell that then. But you've got to have that knowledge. You've got to have your products to be able to sell. You have that knowledge. Guys, I'm going to shoot now because I literally need to go and pour myself a glass of water, and then I've got this family I really need to spend some time with. I hope that was helpful to everyone. Be in touch. Give us a shout. Say hi if you want to. We'll be back in November, but we're always here for you. Good luck. I hope it goes well. I hope you get to the point where I'm looking at certainly a Crystal. Hello, looking at you. I'm saying this, waving at you. Some of us have got some significant challenges ahead next year, have we not? You know, so let's just make sure we do that thinking properly. We get the plan done. Right. Love you all. Thank you very much. Have a fabulous next couple of months. I shall probably see you again in that webinar in November. Okay. Take care, everyone.